Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we return to the horrors of Cyclone Yasi, now knowing the true economical impacts of the disaster. However, we do spare a thought again for the horrors of this disaster itself. Cyclones by nature are a mass of moist air revolving at high speeds. It is these high speeds that cause mass destruction. Unlike what most textbooks portray cyclones as, tall and column-like in shape, cyclones actually are shaped like a disc, with a vertical scale of tens of kilometers, against horizontal dimensions of hundreds of kilometers. Cyclones are a big threat to Australia. As this map shows below, we can see that cyclones are near the equator, the danger areas, that is. This is because of the hot air needed. So how exactly does a cyclone form? What are the associated geographical processes? In order for cyclones to become a concentrated body, the ocean water must be warm, normally over 26 degrees Celsius. This water then evaporates, and if there is low air pressure where the newly formed clouds are, it pulls them in and it begins to rotate. The reason for this rotation is the Earth's spinning in rotation. This process continues as more clouds form and spinning increases. At this point, the cyclone can either dissipate or stabilize. However, even if the cyclone stabilizes, it can still grow in size and increase its wind speed. However, once cyclones arrive over land, they weaken to a lack of moisture and heat, as compared to the ocean where they were formed. And so we return to Cyclone Yasi. Yasi formed on the 26th of January 2011 and dissipated on the 3rd of February, but by then the damage was done. One person died as a result of Yasi through carbon monoxide poisoning resulting from the cyclone. Towns were wiped out. The government confirmed that at least $3 billion of damage has occurred, with the total likely higher. This disaster had an adverse impact on all Australians, but in particular North Queenslanders, who were the ones directly hit by Yasi. However, besides the tragic loss of life, there were other consequences. They were, as stated earlier, at least $3 billion of damage to the economy confirmed, with the total likely higher. Together with the Queensland floods, budget papers confirmed a fall of over $9 billion from previous expectations to the economy, wiping out over 1.2% of growth. The social impacts were important as well. Annabelle's leadership during Cyclone Yasi was praised. This caused a bounce for her in the polls. On a community level, however, this social damage was done through injuries and loss of life. People's lives were taken away as their homes were destroyed and their communities also destroyed. It's hard for us to understand just how deep the social impacts were from Yasi, but they were severe. In terms of the environment, much carbon monoxide was put into the air due to Yasi. However, a future problem would be the elements needed to rebuild the destroyed towns. Where do these resources come from? They come from the environment, and to gather these resources does damage to the environment. This is an adverse effect. So what was the response to Yasi? The federal government deployed the military and other aid workers to aid in the evacuation of flood-ridden areas, search and rescue operations, and for clearing the wreckage. Also, a flood levy was applied to the population to cover for the damages. The state government, Queensland that is, used emergency service people to help out. Community groups such as the SES used their manpower in search and rescue operations. Individuals responded by leaving their houses, followed by a significant cleanup effort. In particular, town leaders encouraged evacuation. All levels of society responded to this disaster. So what were the responsibilities of individuals, community, and government with regards to regulation for cyclones such as Cyclone Yasi? Well, for individuals it's simple. Listen to authority. Besides evacuating and such as recommended by authority, they essentially just have to take care of their own possessions. And what about the community? Typically the local community leaders will be listening for warnings of cyclones and such, and then make an informed decision. They are expected to lead any action, such as evacuation. And finally, what of the government? Governments have a wide range of responsibilities. Government is responsible for detecting cyclones and sending out warnings. During a crisis, they are responsible for a continuous stream of information and for organizing aid efforts. Continuing into the crisis, they organize mass-scale nationwide support, like the imposition of levies, and continue assisting recovering efforts. And that's the latest of the information, released by the federal government on Cyclone Yasi. Good night, ladies.